Thank you very much. I'm not quite sure whether I could speak to these high expectations now. So the question of this session, what can small and medium-sized businesses do for cities beyond employment? This is an absolutely fascinating question. I'm very grateful that I was invited to speak here. It is also a very challenging question. So the question, how can we actually measure that? And what I want to do in this presentation is to propose to understand this better through seeing a small business owner as a worker and as a resident in the city. And we know, and it's very important to understand cities through workplace locations and residential locations, and where jobs are located and where people live shapes our cities, and vice versa, how people can reach their workplace, and the distance from their work, where they can live, where they can afford to live, is very important for individual well-being. And this distance between workplaces and residential location has transformed our cities, for example, through suburbanization. And this distance, or the commute people need to make in order to reach their jobs, is important for understanding the carbon footprint of people, but also of our cities. And the distance, again, the commute, is important for the realization of active travel, but again, also how cities are designed, where work is located and where residences are located, also impacts on the ability people have to travel actively. And again, it's important for understanding individual health, but also health of our cities. And the further away people work from their homes, the greater are their activity spaces, or vice versa. The closer they work to their homes, the smaller are their activity spaces. So it's very important in relation to understand localness or embeddedness of people in place. Thank you. And research has shown that people who have long commutes, it's not only unhealthy for them, but also that people are more unhappy with their social relations. So it's very important also for the social structure of our cities and for the social well-being of individuals. We know that cities have a lot of wasteful commute or excess commuting. So if we try to match residential location of peoples with certain skills, certain occupations, and see where these jobs are located, the actual commute in cities is longer. And we know it is because workers have certain preferences and certain abilities to trade off commuting costs and housing costs. And a lot of research has looked at suburban living, and we know it's driven by the middle class and management occupations. And depending on country, we have seen an urban renaissance, particularly driven by professionals. Italian cities might be different, but particularly in other countries in the OECD, we have seen this trend. So changes in work, but also through the digital economy, remote working or home working, part-time home working has become more popular or has been enabled through ICTs. There has been research on the spatial effects of home working, and we know still very little about the impact on cities, whether people who live more suburban are more likely to ask their employer to work from home, or whether actually the ability to work part home drives people out of our cities. Another interesting research for Los Angeles showed that the self-employed have short commutes, even though this research couldn't quite answer why and what's actually going on. And there's quite a lot of ambiguity in the research whether this type of work that provides greater flexibility actually leads people to live outside employment centers, or is it more a deconcentration within employment centers? So it's a very fascinating new research. And why we still know very little about what's going on is that some studies only know where workers live, maybe also their commute, but they don't know actually where people commute to. Other studies know where the work is actually located, maybe also the commute, but they don't know where the people live. So we don't have quite yet the full picture. And what we did in our research, again, regarding the small business owner as a worker and as a resident of a city, we captured the residential location, the workplace location, also home working, and the commutes, and therefore have really a very good picture of the locational patterns of small business owners. We did the study in the city of Edinburgh, it's a middle-sized city in Scotland in the UK. And Edinburgh has traditionally a service sector economy. Traditionally, manufacturing has been very small in Edinburgh. And we conducted a survey of small business owners with a business in the city of Edinburgh, and we sampled here the micro end, the small end of the SME sector, only micro businesses with less than 10 employees. And given my research interest in home-based businesses, we sampled or we choose a business register that also included unregistered businesses and home-based businesses. So these are also included in our sample, and the sample is at random. And we compared then our findings of the locational patterns of the small business owners, which were just under 200 in our sample, with all workers who work in the city of Edinburgh. And here we use the census of population, which gives us a very good comparison. So where do small business owners who are not home workers, who actually have a commute, live as compared to all workers who commute to a workplace in Edinburgh? Small business owners are more likely to work in central Edinburgh compared to all workers, as you can see in this simple table. And now where do micro business owners live compared to all workers who work in Edinburgh? And here I distinguish between those who commute and home-based employees and home-based micro business owners. And we can see that those with a commute amongst micro business owners are again more likely to live in central Edinburgh. And another key finding in this table is that micro business owners are less likely to commute from outside Edinburgh into Edinburgh. Another finding is that actually home-based employees and home-based micro-businesses are quite similar with respect to where they live. It's very similar, so home-based micro-business owners live very similarly in central Edinburgh to micro-business owners with a commute. Home-based working is more prevalent amongst micro-business owners, and these are exclusively those who work most of their time from home. There are others, particularly amongst small business owners, who have their home as a base, but who work in different locations. So they don't have a fixed commute, and therefore they are not really captured in existing statistics. But really those who say they mainly work from home, so their workplace is in their own home, this is more prevalent amongst micro-business owners compared to all workers who work in Edinburgh, which is 10%, but again, it's quite a high proportion of workers. Now we know where small business owners work, where they live, and in the last step, I show here the prevalence of commuting distance as cumulative, and it excludes home working. And again, we can see that micro-business owners live much closer, live much closer to their workplace, or the other way around. We have almost 18% whose commute is less than 1 kilometer. This is much, much lower, 6% amongst all workers in Edinburgh, and more than 1/3 of business owners with a commute commutes less than 2 kilometers. And we also looked at the commuting flows between the different parts of Edinburgh, and we have found lower commuting rates of micro-business owners across our zones, central, outer Edinburgh, and outside Edinburgh, and this really applied to all directions, in commuting, out commuting, and this is because micro-business owners' workplaces and residences are really closer to each other, and this is in all locations. So it's not just a fact because of their residential location or their workplace location. So in summary, we find a very close proximity of business owners' homes and their workplaces in all parts of the city. Small business owners are less likely to commute into the city, and they commute less between different zones in the city. Small businesses are disproportionately located in central locations, and home-based businesses are prevalent in suburban locations. This is not surprising given the geography of residential locations. So therefore, we see through small business owners really a concentration in the city center on the one hand side, and on the other side a deconcentration also in suburban areas. So what does this now mean? We've heard at the beginning today references to Jane Jacobs, who promoted diversity and also diverse neighborhoods, and giving our results, it's really difficult not to include small business owners if we think of promoting urban working and urban living. so far, this has been really only attributed to some professionals, but small business owners, for example, in the UK, where this case study was based, approximately 10% of the workforce. This is even higher with 14% in the USA, according to the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. So it's a very significant part of our workforce with very distinct workplace and residential locations. So therefore, small business owners may create a greater or may contribute to a greater compactness of cities through less commuting, travel, through home working, where actually the workplace and the residential location overlap. However, through this study, and I don't know another study who has done this, we don't know whether small business owner may compensate the less commute with other travel. So we would need to look into this. We know that, or there is a hypothesis that people have a certain travel budget. So if they commute less, they might have more personal travel. So if we want to think about sustainable cities, we would need to look at overall travel, of course, not only at commutes, but there is some careful evidence that small business owners might produce quite short distances in cities, and therefore small business ownership may also facilitate greater localness and social well-being, since we know that long commutes are associated with decreased happiness with social relations and social well-being. And again, thinking of J&J Corps, with respect to the quite high prevalence of small businesses or micro businesses that are based in residential homes, and therefore also contribute to a mixed use in residential environment. Small businesses may therefore contribute also to a greater livability in particularly suburban areas, and we have seen this in other surveys. I was involved with colleagues that asking home-based business owners what their neighbors think about their business, and even though that there were, from policy side, there were concerns that maybe home-based businesses may increase traffic and therefore also increase conflicts in neighborhoods. Quite the opposite. Neighbors quite appreciated often in interviews home-based businesses because they were present in the neighborhood, so which was found to be useful for quite a few instances. So last but not least, I also want to thank the OECD for working with us and publishing a home-based policy brief. It's now published in the SME and entrepreneurship paper series, and I include the link here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Darja. Thank you so much.